There's no way to actually compel Thomas to recuse himself. That decision is solely up to him. Former federal prosecutor Neama Rahmani joins us now to give us some more context on this. So what's at stake here?
Well, we're talking about a huge constitutional issue that really has never been litigated. So now the Supreme Court is going to step in and decide once and for all, how is Section 3 of the 14th Amendment actually enforced? We all know what it says. Anyone who engages in insurrection can't hold public office. But who's the one who actually makes that determination, and how do they do so?
And we know that the court doesn't normally want to pick up political questions, but this is inherently a political one. It's a 6-3 majority. What are the chances that they will side with the former president?
Oh, Abijoy, I think this all bodes very well for former President Donald Trump. We all know that there's a 6-3 majority. 3 of the justices were appointed by Trump himself. But let's just look into this. They are fast-tracking this appeal. You know, a week after the appeal is filed, the justices get together and they set an expedited briefing schedule with oral argument a month away on February 8th. So if you're reading the tea leaves, there are many, many paths to victory for Donald Trump. It could be procedural, it could be substantive, but I would be shocked if he loses before the high court.
And with that said, what kind of precedent could this case set moving forward?
Well, it's going to decide everything. We know that this is being litigated, obviously, in Colorado. That decision has stayed. Maine, it's still working its way through the courts. There's an Oregon case pending, Minnesota, Michigan, but they've all reached very inconsistent conclusions. Some have said that it requires an act of Congress. Some of others have said, well, it just limits who can hold office, not who actually appears on the ballot. Other judges have said, well, maybe it requires a criminal conviction or at least a charge. So the decisions have been all over the place, even if you're talking about justices and judges who have been appointed by Democratic governors. So I think it's finally time for the Supreme Court to say, hey, this is how the 14th Amendment is enforced. And it's going to apply across the board. Even though we're just talking about the Colorado appeal, this decision will affect the lawsuits that are happening in states throughout the country.
And we know that there were 2 appeals that came to the U.S. Supreme Court, one from the Colorado GOP and then another from the former president himself. So there are several questions that the justices could possibly consider here. What do you think they'll do? Will they take up all of those questions, or will they pick and choose what they want to actually consider so as to not appear to be political?
Well, there's a state law issue, and in Colorado, it's unique in that candidates need to certify that they're able to appear on the ballot, and the Secretary of State there actually has an affirmative duty to affirm that someone is constitutionally eligible. That same election law doesn't apply in all other states, but I think the court is going to take a broader view and really address this constitutional question that frankly hasn't been addressed since the Civil War. And, you know, what does engaging in insurrection mean? You know, obviously Donald Trump is alleged, even though he hasn't been charged, to have incited the Capitol rioters. Does it require him to actually take up arms? Is this sufficient? And who's going to make this determination? Obviously, he was impeached by the House, but he was acquitted by the Senate. Is that enough? Does it require a prosecutor to bring charges? Because we know that, you know, Jack Smith and Fani Willis, even though they could have, they haven't actually charged Trump with an insurrection. Or is it something that a Secretary of State can decide, or an unelected judge? So these are all questions that the Supreme Court justices are going to have to grapple with, and they might just rule on procedural grounds that this is not an issue for secretaries of state, or they can actually dive into the substance potentially, though less likely, and rule whether Trump actually engaged in an insurrection or not.
It's interesting, the timing of this, because we know that Super Tuesday is March 5th, or arguments in this are set to begin over a month from now. How will that all play a part in this?
Well, it's huge. And the fact that the justices agreed to take this case in so quickly, generally they have conferences and they're private, and other folks aren't allowed to be there. And it really usually requires 4 justices to agree to accept the case for review. And not only did they do so, they fast-tracked it. So if there was a possibility that this went through the normal process, and let's say this got pushed out past April, for instance, a decision wouldn't even come down this term. It would have to happen next year after the election. So the fact that the Supreme Court put this on the front burner and decided to hear this and hear it right away leads me to believe that they are fully inclined to reverse this Colorado decision and put Trump back on the ballot.
Super interesting.
Neama, I have a quick I'm so sorry, Carolyn. I'm so sorry to cut you off. I have a quick question for you, Neama. Justice Clarence Thomas, so many people have been wondering if he will recuse himself. Do you think he'll do that?
I don't think he will. He's been subject to all sorts of ethics allegations and issues involving his wife and the Capitol rioters. And like the report said, he's the only one who can decide whether he's going to do so. And, when you're talking about the justices, I think Trump already has two probably lined up. Thomas and Alito are so conservative. I can't see any way where they're going to rule against him. So he just needs a few more. Three of the other remaining four conservative justices. So I think he's got a very good chance of getting this decision overturned.
Neama Rahmani, thanks so much for your insight. Always useful and helpful, that's for sure.
Thanks, Carolyn.